Everybody, thank you so much for coming. And you do all know that we've all amazing, amazing volunteers, but you are our creme de la creme of volunteers, which is why you've been invited here. So thank you so much for your time, for your enthusiasm, and for your skill in participating and making CoCoast a huge success. So, what were we setting out to do in Capture Our Coast? So, the story so far. As you all know, Capturing Our Coast has 7 training hubs, and that in itself is an achievement. It's not some random scientist giving up his or her Sunday afternoon to help out some sort of volunteer programme. It is a huge commitment by 7 high-profile marine research institutes and universities, and I've actually been astounded how impassioned and dedicated the scientists have got behind this engagement programme, which isn't their normal type of working. We had to link up this network of marine labs because of the type of data we wanted you to collect. There's different types of models of citizen science. You can do it all remotely, but the type of training and support and the data we wanted you to collect, we needed face-to-face contact, and this is a really, really powerful model. And a lot of other European countries and universities are really impressed by it. So they're all coastal, and then of course we have Earthwatch, who are bringing in their global expertise in volunteer management, and Debbie's been great managing the communications programme. What did we aim to do? Well, we've captured some of the aims up here, but I don't think that actually even captures all of them. We definitely have tried to develop a national scale model of marine citizen science. So I've shown you the hubs, one of which you've participated in getting training. But we also ran 4 workshops, or what we called our Train the Trainer workshops, where we wanted to learn from other organisations about what they were doing in marine citizen science, and we wanted to roll CoCoast out further and support other organisations to help volunteers collect data in this way. It's a very powerful network of everybody collecting data in the same way really adds to the size of the database that we can make, and the consistency in the methods that we used. We hope that whatever level you've engaged in, that you've learned a little bit more about the marine environment, and a little bit more about the challenges we as scientists have in collecting data in a systematic way, the huge potential of what marine evidence can achieve, but also the limitations. It can't, it's not a fairy story overnight. There are long time periods into collecting all this data. We hope to train and support this network of volunteers. We wanted you to collect data for CoCoast, but we also want you to go on further. We want you to keep collecting. We want you to bring your skills to other projects and other initiatives in the future. We obviously have a series of scientific hypotheses and questions, and we have this big baseline data against which we hope to monitor change in the future. Assessing robustness of volunteer data. We know, because we've trained you, how amazing you are and how skilled you are, but we need to evidence this. So moving forward, we need to show the scientific community how powerful citizen science can be. So, who got involved? Well, you are one of 3,000 people who attended a 1-day training programme to teach you basically how to do the general Transect survey. But far more people engaged. They signed up onto our website, 5,000 people in total. And they did that because they wanted to find out more of the project, but realised it wasn't for them, the training day, the survey, but they got engaged and participated in other ways, even through social media, sharing their understanding and their species knowledge. And then of course we had our campaigns, which I hope some of you got involved with, but we opened those up to other members of the public too. So they didn't have to be tied to a marine lab or tied to a research institution. They could get out surveying for all kinds of reasons, just once off, and not be registered and logged in and monitored as such. What did you collect? Well, goodness, you have completed a total of 2,525 surveys. We have the statistics per hub. The hub who trained the most volunteers was our Scottish hub. Poor old Hannah Grist up there had to train the whole of Scotland. And she trained, I'll put my glasses on for this, 580 volunteers. Okay, so absolutely astounding and amazing. Newcastle trained 377 volunteers. Well done, Newcastle. Hull trained 256 volunteers. Can I say that is the smallest number of volunteers trained per region through CoCoast? Can I just say that although Hull found it harder and slower to recruit, you were the highest achieving number of quadrats per volunteer. Woo! It's all about quality, girls, you know. So clearly Hull was doing something right. So you returned the most data per volunteer, so well done. So we've got some summaries of statistics there. Number of quadrats completed per year. And it all adds up to a staggering number of 240,000 data points collected by CoCoasters around the country. That's absolutely astounding. We actually also ran a Train the Trainer event in Northern Ireland, and we believe that they have been collecting but not submitting. We think they've been collecting and submitting it to local centres and not actually uploading it to our website, so it actually could be a lot higher than that. So we wait and see. And can I just say that is immensely, immensely impressive. Okay, I'm going to go on and talk a little bit more about the data in a minute, but one of the aims of that type of task, the transect, was this huge database. There is power in numbers. We knew there were dog bugs out there. We knew there were anemones. We knew there was the Solrak. We knew it was out there. But you can't really appreciate change, and you can't really appreciate human impact until you actually measure in detail. Otherwise, just anecdotal and circumstantial evidence. So thank you so much for this data set, which people will be using for years, we hope, to come, to refer to about change. Where has been surveyed? I think this map alone is something to celebrate. We've managed to cover most of our UK coastline. The areas that are not covered are, for example, a lot of East Anglia. That we are not worrying about. That's why we didn't have an officer up there in East Anglia, because most of East Anglia is actually soft sediment, at least large parts of it is soft sediment. So it's without having an officer deployed there and ongoing support and training, it is natural why we don't have data points there. God love poor Hannah Grist, she had to cover the whole of Scotland. So there are some gaps in the east of the Scottish borders, Scottish coastline. So that's fairly understandable. We did not set out to support and underpin marine conservation zones. These are areas that are designated for particular habitat quality, if you like. But nonetheless, we are surveying and have surveyed a total of 23 out of 57 designated marine conservation zones. Can I just say a lot of our MCZs, as they're called in abbreviation, are actually offshore, so there's no way CoCoast could have participated anyway. So that is an impressive figure. The one thing we would say with marine citizen science is telling the volunteers where their data is going. We're not saying you're monitoring necessarily the quality or health of these. That's not how we structured your surveys. But nonetheless, your data is incredibly valuable for the people who look after and manage and monitor the health of marine conservation zones. So this is important data, and it will go forward. What has been found? Well, lots and lots of stuff has been found. So we've put up here some statistics on the numbers of anemones we've counted and the numbers of barnacles we've counted. And this is data, these numbers are till the end of July 2018. And clearly we've been pushing a lot of surveys since, so the numbers in themselves will be higher still, so we're going to be putting that data out. We focused in on a small number of species. If we didn't focus in on a small number of species, one volunteer in the southwest would have chosen species 1 to 5, and they might have been the only or rare volunteer who's serving those species. So small one-off records are not really valuable. It's about a critical mass of data points that is really, really valuable. It gives us an idea. We know the protocol that you've been following. We know how many quadrats you've done per shore. So having an estimate of the overall abundance on that shore is going to be really valuable to measure fluctuations over time. So this in itself is very, very powerful. This graph here shows us that of all the seaweed species, the macroalgal species that we were surveying, Fucus serratus occurs in the most quadrats. Now that in itself is not terribly shocking or surprising. Where you were surveying was mid to low shore, so we would expect a lot of the sole rack or the toothed rack. But again, I'm just showing you if your favourite species is in there, you might spot it. It's not because you weren't surveying or finding it. This is the normal pattern, but it provides a baseline of where species are occurring around the UK. So what are we doing with the data? With the general transect survey, what we hoped to do, as I said, was deploy a critical mass of surveyors all around the UK. We actually gave you species that you were unlikely to find in your region, so that they were consistently searched for all around the coast, and that's important. Okay, so if they ever arrive into a region where they haven't been found before, we would pick that up with your data. If you were finding, if the data changed over time, we'd be finding that as well. So it's very important that we had a certain amount of surveys per region and per species. And we wanted to deposit all of this data in some central databases as a kind of an archive of baseline abundance, or how much they're there, but also allowing other people to access it. So some other scientists or environmental monitors would pick up their pet species and explore changes in abundance and distribution over time. And that's what we also hope to do. We hope over the next couple of years to put master's students and undergraduate students on this data, exploring trends. But one of the papers we're hoping to publish on this is something called the Centre Abundance Hypothesis. Now, this was put forward by a chap called Whittaker back in the 1950s. And he said that you're likely to find the most abundant for a particular species at the centre of its geographical range, because from north to south. Because at that centre of its geographical range, the conditions, including the temperature conditions, are going to be most ideal. Okay? Amazingly, there is actually very, very little to back up and support this hypothesis, even though it is really fundamental to what will happen over time in the future, as we know and as we predict, temperatures will change with climate change. So what you need to do is collect evidence to support that. And what you need to have is lots and lots of data. So the CoCoast data is valuable for that respect. It's providing us with an analysis of where species are occurring within their thermal niche, where they're most comfortable temperature-wise. And it will also tell us how vulnerable particular species will be in the future, which species are most vulnerable if the temperature does warm up. Okay? And we hope to produce a paper in hopefully early next year about what your CoCoast data is showing. And everybody who's been involved in CoCoast will get a copy of the scientific paper and a digestible, easy to read format of what that paper is showing. That was one of the things you all contributed to, but we also ran our special investigations. These were a series of questions, some of them very heavy and very complex, some of them we needed quite easy to catch data on. One of the overarching aims of CoCoast was to show the scientific community that you guys absolutely can contribute to data which is meaningful and robust and relevant. data that scientists need to evidence things that will support policy and conservation. Some of these we geared to dramatically tap into and feed into what the policymakers want. And two examples of that are our Coast Explorer app and our Marine Invaders survey. The other special investigations are a bit more subtle. They're answering questions and building the evidence base that scientists need to more subtly answer questions that will feed into policy. So things like, how do different animal species and plant species colonise artificial structures compared to natural rock? How does a marine community, we're using rocky shore, but this is replicable to other types of habitat. How do marine communities respond to increased storminess? Because we know that our seas are going to get more unpredictable, our climate's going to get more unpredictable. And one of the features of that is increased storminess. So that's what we did with race recovery. So each of these questions you might thought was a bit, silly, some of the personal interests of the scientists, but they are feeding into longer term changes in the marine environment. Things like changes in our reproduction, which we know are largely very tightly cued and linked into temperature and weather patterns and climate pattern changes. So thank you so much if you have contributed to one of these as well. So the CoCoast legacy. As I said, overall the large general transect data surveys that you've all participated in will be deposited into central databases, and we're currently going through checking these for anomalies and weird data points that might have been a bit of an error. We will contact you if we really think you have made an error in uploading it. You will have got that spit out email, which when we started triggering this process, it was an automatic generated thing for all the data points that happened to get flagged up. Don't worry about that, that was just an anomaly of the computer. And we've collected surveys within marine protected areas. We hope that you all have gained other things, a social aspect, having a glass of wine with people, learning a bit more, whether it was about marine species or not, the very act of learning. I know I love learning about things outside my own field, so that should have been beneficial to everybody. You have helped demonstrate that a marine citizen science project can generate real, relevant, meaningful evidence, debate and discussion about the role of the citizen in contributing to our legislation and our policy, and making recommendations towards conservation action. So Debbie and I have just come back from a big European Marine Biology Symposium where we both did different aspects of CoCoast and presented it there. And what was interesting is this is not a conference of citizen science advocates, it was a conference of marine scientists. And that is very powerful because we're spreading the word out there that this is a valid research tool. So as I mentioned, some of our activities and exercises were specifically targeted to directly hit into policy. And one of those is Coast Explorer, which wasn't devised by me or any member of the team. It was actually asked of us by marine policy makers. So CFAS and DEFRA and all of these other organisations that we consulted about the potential for CoCoast said, right, what we need is data on coastal usage. How many people are using the coast? How are they using it? Where are they using it? So hence the Coast Explorer app. The next thing is our Marine Invaders campaign. We need evidence on where there are invasive species, how are they spreading, how fast are they spreading. And all of these other huge benefits that will directly or indirectly, short term or long term, feed into policy and management and conservation. But outside that, we've actually built up a huge community of you guys, but also of partnerships between universities, statutory agencies, and all kinds of other organisations who are beginning to recognise how valuable it is to link up, that we should have consistency in messages to the public, and not be territorial about our volunteer groups, and sharing the experience between each other. Positive environmental impact. I think I've covered a lot of this, but can I just reflect on this, that we're all talking about, the benefits of the volunteer and the benefits of the data. As I said, we're trying to develop a model in which marine citizen science can be of real use and real relevance to policymakers and scientists. And therefore, you have taught us so much about what is attractive and what isn't, how much we need to put into training and how much we should back off a bit because you know it all and you're able to survey without us. So what you shared with us about what works and what doesn't work is incredibly invaluable. So going forward, we apologise that we won't be able to support you to the same level because unfortunately there will be a funding hiatus. So all this amazing team that we've recruited to help support you, some of them will be staying on our institutions and others will be going on to bigger and better things. But we want you to keep surveying. Please keep surveying your Transect data. The website will still be there capturing your data. We will be moving forward into a new funding regime, applying for funding. And to that end, we hope that we will engage with you and ask you a lot more about what you want from a future project. We also have available to you all a suite of the special investigations. Marine invaders will definitely be ongoing, and beach babies, bird food, seaweed versus limpets and barnacle photograph will certainly continue for the interim, the next 6 to 12 months at least. Marine invaders will definitely be running for at least 3 years. If you haven't downloaded the app, if you have any kind of a smartphone or Android phone, please, please, please do download the app. It takes 5 minutes to complete the survey when you're on the coast. You just take a picture, answer a few simple questions. This is one of our pieces of data and tasks that will be incredibly influential in getting the policymakers to buy in to the value and power of marine citizen science. So I would strongly recommend that you do this if at all possible. We have launched a CoCoast evaluation survey. If you have any concerns or feedback about the ways you think we could have improved or done things differently, we'd love to hear them. Clearly, you say, well, I'm not going to be surveying anymore if you decide not to survey, but this has huge impact on whether or not we get funding for the next round and helping us to see what we did right and how we could improve things. So as a little incentive, we're offering a £50 Amazon voucher to the winner of a wee raffle that we're going to launch. So we will be, if you've lost the link, we'll be recirculating a link to that survey, and we would really appreciate. This is not us looking at your responses. It's been done by an external company, so there's a bit of an anonymity and step back and objectivity in surveying your responses to that. Part of our model of citizen science partnership is when people came and went, it's not really for me, we fully accept that. CoCoast was not for everybody. And we were very open and transparent that we would not be territorial about our stretch of coast, that we believe there are other excellent projects out there that other organisations were leading, and we fully believe that you should participate in as many as you have time and inclination to do so. Some of these, though, our own organisations are currently involved with. So if you want to move inland, oh God forbid, Earthwatch do run Freshwater Watch, for example. So most of these are our own organisations, but there are lots of fantastic citizen science projects out there. And if you've been hooked and motivated now, there's lots of other things that you could get involved in. And we're happy to give advice if you want to email our staff in the last few weeks of the project about which other ones that are tailored to your own particular interests. So could I just say thank you all for your amazing support and energy and motivation for the last, well, 6 months, if that's all you've been involved in, otherwise 3 years. You have been utterly amazing.